First of all, a huge welcome to St George's. I'm Jonathan Round, I'm the Director of Medical Education here, and I'm responsible for your training and your education while you're here at the hospital. What we've tried to do today is put together a really good programme of things that are going to be really relevant to you while you're here. Now, you probably come thinking that you're going to be learning about geriatrics or some aspect of surgery or whatever, and that's definitely true. But some basic things underpin what goes on, and that's really important, and that's why we've included that here in the Induction Day programme. This year we've got quite a different induction from before. We've compressed it, we've tried to make it more relevant, and in particular we've shortened it so that instead of sprawling over best part of 2 days, we're now down to 1 day. This means we'll be going through some things quite quickly, and we've edited loads of other things, and we'd be very interested as well to hear about your feedback. So just taking you roughly through the day, we've got in the first half of the morning some key messages that you really need to know about that are probably generic, you may have heard before, but are definitely really important to get to grips with. Fire safety, this is possibly not one of the most exciting things about coming to St George's, but you'll find out if there is a fire that everyone looks to you and tries to work out what to do from your actions, so please pay attention to that. Blood safety, blood transfusion. There used to be about 70 deaths a year from bad blood transfusion, and now we're down to 2, and that's because of improvement in transfusion. By the way, that's national figures, not St George's. And lastly, we're going to have in that section a foibles talk, and this foibles bit is sort of St George's specific things that we tend to be good at getting wrong. And we'd like to learn from our errors in the past so that you don't repeat the things that your predecessors have done. And so we have a foible section that I'll be taking you through, things that are specific to St George's that you really should be aware of that are more medical in nature. So that part of the day ends around 10:30, 10:40 or so, and then we're going to be having some coffee, and then what we call a round robin, where we go and sort out all the different bits at different tables that are important to working here, like your cards and computers and occupational health, etc. That will carry on over lunch, and then after lunch it's induction locally, so in your own departments, and that will be coming from 3 o'clock. So we hope the programme's really good. Please tell us what you think on feedback. So a bit of history. Of course, St George's is an ancient institution, and if you go to Hyde Park Corner, you'll see a building like the one in the top left there. That's the former St George's Hospital, now called the Lanesborough Hotel, where Jay-Z and Beyonce tend to go. And if you can afford the 60 quid, you can have a nice cup of tea there as well. We're spread over several different sites, but mostly it's here in Tooting. But we do have a community hospital in Roehampton, Queen Mary's Roehampton, and some community-based settings elsewhere that you may be posted to. We're a fairly tight and densely populated area of London. A lot of deprivation, a lot of affluence as well. And here we are in Wandsworth. In fact, we're right at the very, very bottom of Wandsworth, so we're not ideally situated to cater for the entire borough, but they seem to want to come here anyway, which is very good news. The next thing to probably think about is who's who at St George's. So we've got various luminaries from the past. Harry Hill, for instance, but he, I'm afraid, left medicine quite early on. Other people like Lord Lister, John Hunter, Spencer Wells, and of course Edward Jenner, seen doing a very ethical experiment on a child in the bottom right hand corner, which wonderfully advanced the whole cause of vaccination and child health. We hope you'll emulate their work. You can see their statues around the place as well. It's nice to be in a place which has such a fantastic heritage of innovation and trying to bring the world of medicine forward a little bit. So enough about the past. What about the present? Well, St George's is currently led by Simon Mackenzie, who's an anaesthetist and intensive care specialist, and we're very lucky to have him as a chief executive. It's not many trusts that have an actual doctor working as their chief exec. Andy Rhodes, who's another intensivist, is our medical director at the moment, and I'm sure you'll be hearing plenty from them in the future. Perhaps more famously is Reece down in the bottom left-hand corner there, and the rest of the crew from 24 Hours in A&E. Maybe some of you have deliberately selected St George's because you want to be on the television. That may not happen. If you look at any trust website throughout the country, they'll have a bunch of vision statements and values and this sort of thing. And one wonders how much they really seep through into the day-to-day. At St George's, we do really try and live our vision and our values and try and carry out our mission. And these are things that we try and make underpin what we do on a day-to-day basis. Vision-wise, we've got a slightly complex vision because we're both a district general hospital for this area, but we also provide specialist care for those in a slightly wider area across the whole of South West and even the whole of London for some particular procedures and problems. We also have a mission in education and research because we're attached to St George's University of London, the medical school, and this underpins a lot of what we do as a hospital. Values-wise, you see the 4 things written down there. We try and bring these into our day-to-day interactions and measure ourselves against how well we are doing on those fronts. Now, St George was actually a soldier, sort of middle-ranking soldier in the Turkish branch of the Roman army a very long time ago, and became a saint when he refused to bow down to Roman gods. And there's something about that which we want to infiltrate everything we do in the way of education. There's lots of other things going on, lots and lots of other priorities, but we really believe passionately that education's an incredibly important thing for the healthcare of the future. And these aren't just kind of useless slogans. They actually, we really believe that actually if you want to change healthcare in the future, you've got to build a workforce that are actually dedicated, well-trained, moral, and good at thinking and working out problems for themselves. We put together a charter of things that we'd like to see in your own training, and we look at departments who are failing to do that and work out how we can make them better. In essence, I've tried to put down the 6 things that are really important there. First of all, you actually need teaching and mentoring to be properly trained, and for that reason, that's going to have to be there in your program every week. Some explicit time for teaching and an explicit mentoring program as well. We need to balance out learning and service. Now, the trust probably wants you just to do loads and loads of clinical work. In fact, that is important, and you can learn a lot from doing that, but that can't be all that you do, and you actually have to be learning. And we roughly say around 30% of your time can be doing things that probably have no educational value, but no more than that, because actually 70% needs to be doing things that explicitly advance your career and are challenging you and are making you do new things that you wouldn't have done before, and making you more skilled. So that's a rough sort of balance. We need role models for you as well, and we hope that within the consultant workforce and other parts of the workforce, you'll find people that you would aspire to be. Get alongside them, find out what makes them tick, and see if you can follow in their footsteps. Next, we'd like you to feel valued. Trainee doctors, as we found out during the recent strikes, are an incredibly important part of our workforce, and without them the hospital slowly or quite quickly grinds to a halt. So you are very valued. It probably doesn't get told to you every time, every day, but it is an incredibly important part of actually how we deliver care to our patients. Now, training also needs to be not just done en masse, but also individualised to your own needs, and that's why mentoring is very important. We'd expect that immediately you start, you'll find out who your educational supervisor is and meet up with them very quickly. If that isn't happening, you need to get back to the postgraduate department, and we'll make sure that this happens to you. And lastly, we really feel that you need to be listened to. We're a very listening organisation. It's quite a flat structure, you'll find. You probably get surveyed a little bit more than you'd like to be, but this is so we can actually hear what you're saying, and so that's very important to us. Now, we'll hear a bit more about some of these things as we move through the morning. How can it go wrong? And the first four I'm going to leave to my colleague Kim, who's going to be telling you about the perspective of training from the GMC angle. Because again, her heart is just to make sure that you don't run into trouble that's totally needless. A couple of things I'll bring out though around policy and behaviour. Policy violation is, it sounds like a very nasty thing written down like that, but actually this means that you just deliberately decide to do something that isn't in the policy, or just ignore the policy. The reason we've got policies is because things have gone wrong in the past, and we find that it's easier if you've got it written down clearly what you're meant to do, and then you can just stick to that. This isn't in a way to create a stick that you can therefore be beaten with, but it's in order to make care simple and care very explicit. The areas that we constantly have problem with are around consent, venous thromboembolism screening and prescription, and writing sensibly in the notes. Policies have been written by clever people looking at lots of different things, so please follow the policy, and it makes life better for everybody. Last thing's around behaviour. Now, some of these things here just look ridiculous. I couldn't possibly do that, you might think to yourself. Well, actually, we all tend to from time to time, especially when things are busy, especially when things get very stressful. And we have to work out a way of not passing on the stress we're feeling to the rest of the team. Unfortunately, some of us tend to do these things. So what can you do instead? Well, it's pretty easy. What you have to do is just at the bottom there, think about how you would like to be treated in this situation and try and do that to everybody else. For better or worse, people tend to look at doctors as a group to follow, and you have quite a bit of power and influence in any medical team. And because of that, it's very important that your behaviour is of a high standard. So listen to people, think before you speak, and remember, would I like to be treated like that? Okay, a couple of very simple things. Study leave and Intrepid. We want you to go on study leave. We want to pay you for that. Unfortunately, it has to get done by this thing called Intrepid, and you need a login. There's about 850 quid. We take in a little bit for bits of administration and simulation and what have you. And you get 30 days a year. It's all done on a pro rata basis. Any questions, come use this email below, pgme@stgeorges. And that should make it clear. This year we've got a new system where your study leave costs for instance, registration get paid before you go and shortly after being actually registering for the course, which should save a couple of months in getting that money back. A couple of things also to help you. On the right hand side there you see Dr. Toolbox. If you've come across this before, you'll realise what a great app it is. You can download it for free, log into St George's, and you'll find lots and lots of really useful information. I use the contacts quite a bit because it's basically the phone book for the hospital is in there, but we've also got lots and lots of pages relating to individual departments and their business as usual standard operating procedures. The other thing that I'll just highlight to you is this wonderful new online website called United Medicine, which has been put together by a trainee, which basically reviews loads and loads of articles at an abstract level. And it's the sort of thing you might want to do while you're waiting for a patient to come. It's 2 a.m. Feel like you've done no reading for the last month. This is a quick way to get into that. So go and have a look at that website, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. Okay, second last slide. This one's all around communication and support. Now, none of this stuff really works without properly communicating with you and you with us too. So we need a valid email address. This is really super important. Loads of things come out of email. It's not the best medium, and you'll probably find lots of other WhatsApps and other ways to communicate. But email is a fantastic way for communication in a business setting, and to actually make sure that things are communicated with you. So we need an email address that you look at regularly, and regularly means by regularly we mean at least every other day. But this is how you can communicate with us too as well. Now there you are in the middle on the left. How do you communicate? Who do you raise problems with? Well, you should have a clinical supervisor, and they report to the care group lead, then the divisional director, and finally to the medical director. Now if you've got a problem going on clinically, this is how you raise it. If you don't feel your clinical supervisor is taking it seriously, take it higher. Keep taking it higher until you feel it's sorted out. And this is the essence of whistleblowing. And if you really feel you're not getting the medical directors brushing it under the carpet as well, then you'll need to take it elsewhere. But we're very, very keen that your observations and the things that you notice that aren't working well, those are followed up. Now, those guys aren't so much good on the educational side, and for that reason you need to come to your educational supervisor, and then either to the trainee program director or to myself, the DME, if you're feeling things aren't happening as they should on an educational side. You've got support as well on the left-hand side of the diagram. If it's personal and it's around you and how you're behaving and getting on with things, that's the professional support unit, may be of great use to you, and they're based at Hessel, or the Deanery as it used to be called. More locally, of course, the Postgraduate Centre is a fantastic source of advice. We're devoted to sorting your issues out. So that's all I've got to say, really. Welcome to St George's. We hope you have a fantastic time here. And of course, any issues, please get in contact with me or the rest of the team. Thank you very much.